Hi, my name is Victoria Ulrich, and for my final project, I am going to be speaking about transgender student athletes in high school and college. Transgender individual is one who may choose to go through transitioning to reaffirm their gender identity. The term transgender is considered an umbrella term that captures all gender-variant identities. Transgender student athletes are individuals who play sports either in high school or college. It's important to note that 75% of transgender students feel unsafe at school, and 59% of these students were denied access to restrooms that correspond with their gender identity. This means that student athletes who are transgender not only have a difficult time playing for the team they want, but they might not be allowed to use proper locker rooms with their team. Students who are transgender also do not feel entirely supported at schools. Videos from our class lecture talk about the lack of gender education and how these students are at risk to be bullied more. This video also mentioned that every student is different, they all have different stories, and each of them have different needs of support for their transition. Transgender athletes, specifically students, is limited and only goes back about 20 years. In 2006, Keelan Gotzi comes out as transgender and is the first openly transgender student athlete to compete in an NCAA sports. In 2008, the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association enacts the first statewide policy enabling the participation of transgender student athletes in high school sports according to their gender identity. In 2010, the National Center for Lesbian Rights and Women's Sports Foundation issued Think Tank report on the team Equal Opportunities for Transgender Student Athletes, including with policy recommendations for high school students and college athletes. In 2010, Kai Alum was the first openly transgender man to play for a college women's basketball team. George Washington University, his coach and teammates all embraced Kai's public announcement. The NCAA rules that Kai is allowed to play on the women's team as long as he is not taking any hormones. In 2011, Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network launches Changing the Game. The GLSEN Sports Project focused on making K-12 athletics and physical education safe, respectful, and accessible for students of all sexual orientations and gender identities and expressions. In 2011, Campus Pride launches the Out to Play project, designed to address anti-LGBTQ+ slurs, biases, and conduct in college sports and create safer and more LGBTQ+ friendly athletic community at colleges and universities across the country. In 2011, the National Collegiate Athletic Association adopts transgender athlete inclusion policy and distributes to all members' institutions. In 2014, Matt Dawkins becomes the first certified transgender student athlete in the state of New Jersey, running track at Cherokee High School. As you can see, the image depicts a map of the United States which shows the variations in each state for transgender student athletes. Each state is coded green, red, blue, or yellow, all of which indicate a different type of policy for their students. Green states like California, for example, allow transgender students to play on a team that corresponds with their gender identity. These states have minor changes needed to show support for these students. Red states are the opposite, and transgender athletes have little or no chance in playing on a team that corresponds with their identity. States like Alabama require students to participate in athletics with their certified birth certificate's gender. Yellow states like Arizona look at case-by-case or individual review, depending on the sport and student. Blue states have no policy for transgender student athletes. In addition to high school student athletes, the National Collegiate Athletic Association created policies directed towards transgender student athletes. This includes differences for male to female and female to male transitions. Transgender females must be treated with testosterone suppression medication for gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria and/or transsexualism. For the purposes of NCAA, competition may continue to compete on a men's team but may not compete on a women's team without changing it to a mixed team status until completing 1 calendar year of testosterone suppression medication. For transgender males, they must receive medical exception for treatment with testosterone or diagnosed gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria and/or transsexualism. In addition, for purposes of NCAA competition, may compete on a men's team but is no longer eligible to compete on a women's team without changing that team status to a mixed team. In an article done by the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network, reported that 56% of LGBTQ+ team members and 66% of team leaders competing in high school sports reported feeling a positive sense of belonging at school. In addition, they also partnered with the LGBTQ+ advocates to create a model high school policy which would address inclusion policies for these students. Aside from policies like the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network presented, education and advocating is very important when it comes to gaining support. Some other actions to take aside from enforcing laws could be sharing stories. Matt Dawkins and his story shows a positive light on the controversial topic. Of course, not everyone has a similar story, but Matt showed that you are capable of being who you want while doing what you want. Matt, by the middle of high school, was able to run for the men's track team at Cherokee High School.